I think hopefully everyone knows we had originally lined up Jigar Shah to be a keynote speaker in the afternoon for us. Unfortunately, he was not able to make it, but he was able to record a short video for us, which I'm going to play now in his absence.
Hello, solar advocates of Wisconsin. Thank you so much for coming to this event. I am so sorry that I am not there with you. Some personal circumstances have come up and I'm just not able to travel to be there with you. I just wanted to let you know that I'm actually reporting from Salt Lake City, Utah today, and just met with a good friend of mine, Sarah Baldwin, who worked for Utah Clean Energy for 10 years until her breakthrough came in 2012, where she got a 60 megawatt program with Rocky Mountain Power. Today, there's hundreds of megawatts of solar getting contracted in the utility space that are expected to be built by the end of 2016. I think Wisconsin is in the same place. Wisconsin has spent years training people, NAPSEP certification, the Midwest Renewable Energy Show. When Carl Segrest and I were working together, when he was at We Energies, we got solar and Kohl's department stores. And I think that Wisconsin is primed for prime time. I mean, in addition to just the training, Wisconsin has some of the highest electricity rates in the country for residential consumers. Residential consumers have averaged 3 to 4% rate increases per year over the last several years. And so I think it's for this reason that Madison and We Energies and others are trying to proactively kill solar in Wisconsin. And all I can say to you is it's not going to happen. When you look at what 15 people, just 15 people in Austin Energy's territory have been able to accomplish over the last 2 years, it's nothing short of amazing. They were able to get Austin Energy to shut down a major natural gas plant and build hundreds of megawatts of new solar power plants. And so keep the faith. I can assure you that all of us are thinking of you and will do whatever it takes to support you in your success. I do think things are going to turn around, and I think actually these lower oil prices are going to help you out tremendously, because we're still creating jobs while a lot of the oil fracking states are going to be cutting jobs. And so don't despair. These things are all about luck, and luck is preparation meets opportunity. You guys are certainly doing all the work to get prepared, and now we just gotta wait for the right opportunity to pass. Thank you very much. Happy New Year, and look forward to spending time with you next time.
Well, let's thank you. We do have a tremendous afternoon closing keynote speaker in Jacqueline Patterson from the NAACP, and I've looked at her presentation and it looks tremendous. So hope everyone can stay and listen to her. We also have our awards ceremony in the afternoon, of course, too. Technology. So I'm really excited to have our 11 a.m. panel on policy and legislative matters. One of our panelists was from Eau Claire, Andrew Werthmann. He was not able to come due to the weather today. We have two tremendous panelists and a tremendous moderator. So I'm going to introduce Susan Bence, who's our moderator today. Susan is Milwaukee Public Radio's environmental reporter. Long before becoming a journalist, Susan Bence studied foreign languages and taught a bit of introductory German grammar. She spent the next 20 years working for Prevent Blindness Wisconsin, first as volunteer coordinator and ending as executive director. In 2004, she was inspired to return to UW-Milwaukee with a specific goal: to work in public radio. Bence joined the Milwaukee Public Radio News team in 2008. In 2009, she was asked to become the station's environmental reporter. Bence has earned multiple awards for writing and reporting, including from the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association and the Northwest Broadcast News Association. So please help me welcome Susan Bence to moderate our panel.
Guten Morgen, that's the end of my journey. That's all so long ago. I'm delighted to be here with you today. In my mind, the primary focus is to offer you the opportunities to ask and quiz our experts here in their own disciplines. But I will begin by introducing Matt Howard from Milwaukee. He is the Milwaukee Environmental Sustainability Director, has been that since June of 2010. He leads the city's efforts to improve the sustainability of the city government operations and promote sustainability across businesses in the city. It's an expansive program. Matt currently oversees a portfolio of programs that has resulted in $134 million in private capital raised or committed, $30 million in economic activity stimulation, and an 8-to-1 return on investments to the taxpayer's dollar. So, all good stuff. He's published the cities with a staff of tens, several. A comprehensive sustainability plan that was published in 2013. It's called Refresh Milwaukee, and it's the city's first 10-year plan looking to a sustainability, vibrant, livable community city. That's Matt, just a little of Matt. Chris Taylor is representative of the Wisconsin State Assembly. She was elected in 2011. She serves the 76th Assembly District from Madison, and she's a leading voice in the legislature on the need to allow third-party financing for renewable energy systems to jumpstart job creation. Prior to serving in the State Assembly, Chris was policy and political director for Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin. She graduated from Penn University in 1990, and in 95 graduated from UW Law. She's not just interested in renewable energy, she works in the areas for families, women, children, and other basic human and civil rights. So we're delighted to have both of them here. This is going to be primarily their time to share with you. I'll ask a few questions, and then we'll open it up to you to ask your questions, to share your perspectives. And we will, apparently we're going to notch up with this session. There'll actually be a trained staffer coming to you with a microphone later on. But then, first of all, we'll start with Representative Taylor, who will ask to share her thoughts on clean energy and what she sees coming in Wisconsin.
Thank you, everyone. Can people hear me? I'm going to sit because I'm a casual person, and I prefer to do that. Thank you so much for the introduction. I really appreciate being here. This is a great group. I couldn't even park around here, so I knew it was going to be a good day. But I'm Chris Taylor. I've been in the legislature for 3 years. Never intended really to run for the legislature. The last time I had run a race was in high school as junior class president, and I did win, but that was 30 years ago. But ran because there were things happening in the state I didn't like. And I had a baby at the time and a 4-year-old going off to kindergarten. And it wasn't just what I saw with collective bargaining or school funding or defunding rather, but it was really what was happening with the environment as well. And so it very much stimulated me to run. I live a block from Lake Monona. And we're so fortunate here to have these incredible natural resources in Wisconsin. But at that point, my kids had never swum in Lake Monona at that point when I had first contemplated running. And I thought, what a shame that I can't even let my children swim in a lake that's half block from my house. So that was one of the reasons that I ran. I wish I could be here, and I'm not. I don't want to be Debbie Downer, I really don't, but I think it's very critical that we understand what's happening at the state level. There's a lot of wonderful things happening at the local level. There's a lot of great things happening in communities all over this state. But at the state level, in the land of John Muir and Alda Leopold and Gaylord Nelson, in the state that really, for so long, I think, led the country in conservation, we are behind. We are behind. We are not up to speed with the renewable energy revolution in the state of Wisconsin. And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's national pressure. There's a whole national campaign led by the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC, you may have heard of them, that their number one priority is stopping renewable energy. And this group has a lot of power, and I know because I go to their meetings. I don't know why I torture myself, but I do go to their meetings. I am a member, because the policies that we see, and these regressive policies we see in the state of Wisconsin, are not just, it's not just a random thing. It's not just random that we see these attacks all over the red states, all over. We have 25 states now controlled And I'm not an ideologue, I don't like being super partisan, but I have to tell you, in states that are controlled by Republicans, where you have a Republican governor and a Republican-controlled legislature, unfortunately, that is where we are seeing not just a rollback of conservation. I mean, how many of you were involved with a mining debate here? Did anybody engage in that debate? We had a big debate on mining here in the state of Wisconsin, where we seem to be going back to 19th century job creation efforts rather than 21st century job creation efforts. And we had a big debate about mining that rolled back a lot of our protections for wetlands, rolled back citizen participation in the permitting process, which is so critical here. We have a strong, strong tradition of citizen participation. So it's not just the eradication of some of our environmental protections. It's literally trying to stop renewable energy. And we just had a couple rate cases in front of our Public Service Commission that probably made Wisconsin one of the most, if not the most hostile state to solar. Now, I have a power purchase agreement bill that would help spur solar that 24 other states have passed, which allows third-party contracting. Which means if you're a property owner, you can actually contract with a renewable energy company for that company to come on your property and erect whatever it is, mostly solar, it could be something else. It could be wind turbine, it could be a biodigester, and you, rather than having to pay those upfront costs, purchase the power from that renewable energy company. I would love to see this bill pass, but even the mention of this bill caused the utilities to go absolutely bananas. And it even caused some of our traditional allies in the building trades to be very, very unhappy with it. Well, why would that be? Because utilities use unionized labor. And there was concern that that all renewables should be done through the utility model. That's what we heard from our labor allies. Because they employ labor workers. They employ unionized workers. So it was very interesting, the debate that developed over power purchase agreements. Unfortunately, we were not able to move it. There's some ambiguity in the law. I think that there is a real argument that you can do this now. You don't need a separate piece of legislation, which we know probably is not going to pass in this environment. But we still are trying to make the efforts to utilize solar in the state, to utilize wind, but we are behind. We are behind other states in doing so. And so, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the national agenda on renewables from the conservative movement, from the ALEC group. But I have to tell you, the last conference that I went to for the American Legislative Exchange Council, I always go to the energy subcommittees because I want to know what's coming to our state. What we see at ALEC today comes to the state of Wisconsin tomorrow. We saw it with collective bargaining. We're going to see it with renewable energy. When I was at ALEC last time, one of the big pushes was taxing electric and hybrid cars. A couple months later, what do we see from the Department of Transportation in their budget? Taxing hybrid and electric cars. Another proposal from ALEC, tax solar. Because people who use solar, they're still benefiting from the infrastructure that the utilities have to maintain, so they need to be taxed. Well, what did we see at the PSC? We Energies. They got a tax on solar. So it's extremely important we understand where these are coming from. But I'm going to end with one story that kind of underscores, I think, the reality of the machine we're facing to stop renewables that is coming nationally, and you do see it all over the country. I went to the energy subcommittee at ALEC, and one of the presentations was from Google. Google, eBay, Facebook, and Yahoo came in to the energy subcommittee, and I thought, oh, this is very interesting. I have not seen them before. And they had one representative come in and give a pitch for more renewable energy policies, that ALEC was stopping renewable energy policies at the state level. Because that's what ALEC does. ALEC is a menage a trois between corporations, state legislators, and right-wing think tanks that come up with model policies that they push out to the states. And then the legislative members of ALEC are supposed to go back to their states and get these bills passed. And they get a lot of incentive to do that because they're meeting people like the Koch brothers at ALEC meetings. They're meeting their future donors, like Scott Walker did. And that's where he met the Koch brothers. So I'm sitting in this meeting, and here comes Google. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be very interesting. And they make a strong pitch. Please stop your attack on renewables. We're not going into states that don't have robust renewable energy policies. This is from Google and Yahoo. And they build these huge data centers. They need a lot of energy. And the response was not from Koch Industries and from Peabody Energy, the largest coal producer in the world. You can imagine the response. There was dead silence. That you had a new upcoming, these are the jobs of the future, really, in IT, in healthcare IT. I mean, this is what you see, that you had an industry coming to Alan and say, please stop. You need to be more favorable to renewable energies. And, the response is very predictable. It costs more. Well, it doesn't. Wind's coming down. These prices are coming down. The price points are coming down. And the point that the Google representative, the Yahoo representative made was this is market demand. This is what people want. And if you're about free market, and if you're about consumer choice, let's give people a choice. And let's make sure that these policies are options for states, rather than coming in trying to kill net metering, trying to stop power purchase agreements, and continuing on with this coal economy. That in the state of Wisconsin, a coal economy makes no sense because we have no coal. So anyway, we have a lot of work to do. I see a lot of potential at the local level. The state level, we're going to have to watch very, very closely. The other tax that's coming is on these EPA carbon regulations. This is a political tsunami for the right. They hate what has been proposed on carbon, on the EPA carbon rules. They're going to try to stop in the state of Wisconsin. They're going to go all over the country trying to stop the implementation of these rules. So let's get ready. Let's know it's coming. Let's be aware. But we have a lot of fights here in the state of Wisconsin. We do have the people on our side, though. That's where I think we win, is we know people want renewable policies. They want the option. They want to use renewable energy. So I know I've probably exceeded my 5 minutes. I'm happy. I know we have a whole question and answer session coming, but I'd really like to hear from you all as well. Thank you.
You have 1 minute now.
Make a Martian minute, so it'll be 4 or 5 minutes long. Thanks, Tyler and Renew for organizing this conference. It's critically important right now. Thanks, Susan, for moderating. If you haven't had a chance to hear Susan on the airwaves, she's a great advocate, very objective in terms of her reporting on local, regional, and statewide issues. Thank you, Representative Taylor, for your leadership.
Speak up. Speak up.
Is it? Can you hear me now? I have to bend down. All right. So again, thanks Tyler, thanks Susan, thanks Representative Taylor for being here. My name is Matt Hart, I'm the Sustainability Director for the City of Milwaukee. Mayor and I have a little saying in the city, every dollar you spend on renewable energy is a dollar spent on a job for a Wisconsinite. It's a very simple little motto. I don't know why it's so difficult to understand. There was a quote, I'm going to paraphrase, from Susan Hedman, who's the EPA Region 5 Administrator. She was in town, or in Milwaukee, a couple weeks ago. And Susan said, I really don't understand why Wisconsinites are so content to put $12.5 billion on rail cars and ship it to Wyoming and bring back into the state dirty coal. That's the model. So we can send those $12.5 billion someplace else, or we can spend an equal or greater amount on this state, in this state, for jobs, for growth, for energy produced here by and for Wisconsinites. So this is a kind of sets up a question that I wrestle with, and the question is, why do we have small government, free market, laissez-faire, libertarian state government imposing new taxes, erecting barriers to entry, protecting monopolies, and telling you and me what I can and can't do with my home, with my facility, with my municipality? This is a question that and then I have a couple whiskeys after I ponder that question, and then I have another question. When will my 6-year-old daughter stop watching Frozen? Someone please tell me. But what's ironic about this, when we talk about we're we source our energy from in the state, in particular in the service territory that I'm in, could you imagine the state legislature telling Wisconsin foundries that they can only source their sand from one company, whether it's in Wisconsin or Michigan or wherever? Could you imagine telling Wisconsin brewers that they can only buy their hops from Oregon? It's absurd, but yet we think it's perfectly rational and normal to do that with our energy mix here in this state. So, what can we do about that? There's a lot of pessimism out there. I try and be optimistic. I think at the end of the day, we just have to be pragmatic. And fortunately, I work for a pragmatic mayor, and who really goes by the saying that we've got to get our own house in order. Because the pendulum will swing the other way. Eventually, the pendulum swings the other way. And in the meantime, we have to be prepared for it. So what we can control, what we can do in the city of Milwaukee is goals that we set for ourselves, for our city, and for our municipality. And so I'm just going to run over a couple of those goals that we have. We have a 20% energy reduction by 2020 goal. We have a 25% renewable energy mix for all city facilities by 2025 goal. We have a 40% waste reduction goal by 2020. We have been working with the representative here and others on customer choice in this state. And broadly speaking, we feel that not only is there an environmental and social benefit to being more energy efficient and to having a greater renewable energy mix in terms of where you're sourcing your energy, but there's obviously a bottom line economic impact. And that's one of the things I think that we as advocates can do more of, is really speak up and speak to that bottom line impact. It's really a competitiveness issue. And I think one of the things that I was sort of struck by in this most recent rate case was how quiet, quite frankly, a lot of manufacturers were in this state, because manufacturing is so energy intensive. Now I know we've got a great sponsor here with SC Johnson, and as you know, they have one of the largest manufacturing facilities in the state that's powered by renewable energy. And so, they're a great beacon out there in terms of manufacturing. But I was really struck by how quiet manufacturing was. And we had a question earlier about Wisconsin manufacturers and commerce, and sort of kind of why they've been quiet or actually actively opposed in this case, in this particular rate case. I don't have any answer for you. But I think we really, again, we as advocates really need to speak to the bottom line impacts. And in terms of bottom line impacts, just in the 4 years that I've been with the city of Milwaukee, in terms of energy efficiency and renewable energy, we've been able to reduce our utility bill by over $500,000, and we've got about a $20 million energy bill. And that's just basic, with no support from the state or at the end of the stimulus, or really no support from the federal government. We've been able to do that on our own. And yeah, it's hard. You feel a little bit like Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill. It's a big, damn heavy rock, but you got to do it. And fortunately, there's enough of us here in the room who can push that rock together, and I think we'll get over that hill. So in the city of Milwaukee, one of the things we've really been focusing on, again, is energy efficiency, because that's what we can. It's the low-hanging fruit right now, and it really sets us up for a renewable energy future. We'll be ready. We'll squeezed all the blood out of that energy efficiency stone. And so we have 4 broad goals, policy goals in the city of Milwaukee around energy: improving residential and commercial energy efficiency, replacing fossil fuel use with renewable energy, growing Milwaukee's cluster of energy efficient and clean tech companies. You hear a lot about the Water Council, but we also have one of the highest concentrations in the country of energy power and controls companies in and around Milwaukee and the region, and we really should be talking that up. Companies like Johnson Controls and Rockwell Automation. We also want to increase our community's resilience and customer choice by removing regulatory and institutional barriers to distributed renewable energy. And kind of back to this rate case again, this is the first time that the city was really heavily involved, at least since I've been here. There may have been times in the past, really heavily involved in the rate case. And it was eye-opening. We learned a lot in terms of how this works. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff going on. It's inside baseball, there's small ball going on. And I think as we as advocates get more involved in rate cases and understand when and where the pressure points are, I think we'll be more efficient advocates. And so I just want to spend a minute, and if you raise your hand or stand up if you want to, if you either intervened in the rate case, you worked with an intervener, or you somehow advocated or sent in public comments in the most recent rate case, raise your hand. It's amazing. Let's give everybody a round of applause. I know we didn't get the results that we wanted, but I truly believe in times of, I don't want to say crisis, but uncertainty, there's a lot of opportunity. And we need to be as organized as those who are advocating for these monopolies, because that's what they are. They're monopolies. They're erecting barriers to trade and they're limiting your choice. It seems kind of, to me, like something that a free market advocate might not really necessarily support. So I think we have to start calling that out and being vocal about that. In conclusion, again, I do want to thank Renew for their advocacy here in the state. We need leaders like that across the state. We need leaders like all of you that are here in the room. We need legislators like the woman to my right. We need people on the radio who can educate us and tell us about the issues and open our eyes to the issues. So let's not get downcast or negative, pessimistic. We can do this. Get your own house in order. And when the pendulum swings the other way, because it will, it always swings the other way, we'll be ready. Thanks.
It's over. I think we have I just arrived before this panel, so I have a sense that we have a very educated, informed, involved in your own, elements of renewable energy. But how many people know about Milwaukee's Shine program? Raise your hands. Half and half. So, and we've talked extensively. I think rate cases are a theme, an underlying theme here clearly. But Matt, would you talk a little bit about Milwaukee Shines? What is achieved? Milwaukee is one of 2 solar American cities. And then go into specifically how the rate case that did go through recently in the Milwaukee area will affect solar renewables specifically at this point.
Sure. So Milwaukee Shines was a program that originally started in the city back in 2008-2009 timeframe. It was originally funded through a grant from the U.S. Department of Energy. And essentially the goal of Milwaukee Shines is obviously to advocate for solar and, broadly speaking, renewable energy for residential, commercial, and industrial in the city of Milwaukee. And because of the stimulus dollars, we were able to do a little bit more from probably 2009 to 2011, 2012. But we were fortunate to win several other grants from the Department of Energy to support that. But really, I think the activity of Milwaukee Shines that has been particularly impactful in the past couple of years has been the neighborhood group buy program, and it's essentially sort of the Costco model of purchasing, bulk purchasing. So you get a bunch of neighbors together, and you basically drive down the price per kilowatt for solar installs. And because we don't necessarily have the regulatory or incentive framework in the state that makes it easy for an individual to do, or more affordable for an individual to do solar, this neighborhood group buy model has been particularly successful. And I have to give credit for Milwaukee Shine's success to Amy Hart, who's here today. She's no longer with the city, has gone on to the private sector, but it's really through her leadership and advocacy since 2010 that Milwaukee Shines, I think, has really been successful. And in those years, she and the Office of Sustainability have assisted over 350 homeowners in the city, over 30 businesses. And in 2013 and full year now 2014, we've had back-to-back years of a record number of installations in the city of Milwaukee. And this is really, again, in a regulatory framework that's not very conducive to doing solar. So it can be done. It's hard and sometimes it sucks, but you can do it. You just need to be tenacious. And so, again, I think this group purchasing model is a really good model. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to rely on incentives or subsidies or anything like that. So the rate case, so the city of Milwaukee was an intervener in the rate case, as I mentioned. And we were obviously disappointed with some of the outcomes, obviously, as it impacts solar. I think the group of advocates in the city and the Energy Service Territory calculated that because of the rate case, the payback for the average homeowner for doing a solar install more or less doubled. So that's kind of a disincentive. On the upside, again, we're trying to look at the positive here. That payback is still less than what it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So just because of the increase in efficiency in the market, even though there's been a setback, it's still less than what it was a few years ago. Nevertheless, it's not a positive direction to be going. The city of Milwaukee has 12 renewable energy installations on its facilities, 11 solar and 1 wind turbine. And so obviously we're going to see a pretty large cost increase as our homeowners with the 75% rate increase on fixed rates for homeowners on their bill. The city, we haven't fully been able to analyze this yet because we have, believe it or not, 1,500 energy accounts across our 140 facilities, so we're still doing the analysis. But you know, we're talking it's on the level of about $200,000 to $300,000 a year that's going to be added to our utility bill. And guess where that goes? That's reflected in your property tax. So are we robbing Peter to pay Paul? That's one thing I wonder with these rate cases. Those costs they're getting spread to someone. There was a question earlier, a point made about shareholders and these investor-owned utilities and essentially trying to minimize shareholder risk. You know what you do in the private sector? If you've got a poor product that's not performing well, you eat it if you're the company, right? You don't get to pass it on. So, you know, this is a problem here with our framework, and I think, you know, again, going back to Renew and to our representative here and some of her colleagues in the assembly, I think really one of the ways we really need to attack this again is changing the underlying system and really looking at some of the laws and tweaking the laws, because really just doing battle hand-in-hand combat with some of these utilities is a bit futile. There is on the books a Wisconsin state energy policy. It's a statute in the state of Wisconsin on the books. I don't know if you know this, but it has 4 priorities for our energy mix in the state. The number 1 priority is energy efficiency first, and the number 2 priority is then non-combustible renewable energy. Fossil fuels are last. This is on the books. This isn't something new. It's been there for a while. Why aren't we following it? So let's enforce our own laws.
So I think that we should open it up to you in just a moment, but before we get that going, I would ask Representative Taylor, you talked about what you see happening in our state and throughout the nation. What would be your recommendation to everybody from citizens to municipalities if renewable energy is seen as being, you know, the way of the future?
Right. Well, I think that we need to get organized, honestly. The people on the other side are organized. We saw that in the rate cases. And they will employ some sometimes devious means to accomplish their goals. I mean, we saw an issue that arose with people who did not sign a petition to support rate increases. Suddenly their names were on the petitions and submitted to the PSC. So, you know, the other side is extremely well organized, extremely well organized. They are ahead of us in a lot of ways. The utilities, in fact, see the writing on the wall with renewables, and particularly with solar. It was not a fluke that they came to ask for a rate increase, a base rate increase at this time, because they can see what the future is. People want renewables, they want solar. So I think we have to get organized, and we can't come to the battle with a fly swatter when they have a steamroller. They have an infrastructure, they have money, they have a plan, and we have to have a plan. You know, and in some ways too, if you don't like the game, you got to change the game, right? We're smart. We are smart, we are strategic. We have to be thinking ahead of the game and not so reactionary. And, you know, I go around, I talk about, you know, the EPA, these carbon regulations. That is not a done deal. I mean, there is going to be every effort employed to stop. And you know, I frankly think it's the minimal of what we should be doing. It's really the minimal. But it's more than we've seen done in the past with regulating carbon emissions. So I think we have to be ready, we have to have our resources, and we have to be forward thinking. So we're not in a defensive posture. I feel like we are very much at this moment in a defensive posture. You know, I really questioned doing a power purchase agreement bill in this climate where it could become something negative very quickly. It could become something that prohibits this third-party contracting. So we have to be very strategic. We have to be organized. We have to get our voices heard. And we have to be forward-thinking and set, you know, I'd like to see us set the terms of the debate and not be so reactionary. And we know that people are on our side. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you look at these utility commercials, what do they show? Solar panels. I mean, it's almost a joke, really. You see some of these commercials, you're like, solar panels, it makes me irate that the utilities are showing solar panels with what just happened with these rate cases, but they know it too. They know that their model of doing business, and I've had these conversations with utilities, well, why don't you try to take advantage of the technology? Why don't you change your business model so that you are companies of the future? And your role will change. Utilities' role, as we look at distributed generation, is going to change. But that is what we have now. We have people who want to produce their own energy, and that's not going to go away. So I think there's an opportunity too for the utilities here in trying to have that conversation as well. But right now it seems like we're kind of stuck in an old way of doing things at the utility level. But the public's moved on. The public is ready to move. Policymakers are notoriously behind the public on certain issues, and this is one of the issues. So organizing those grassroots voices, do not underestimate your power. You do have a lot of power, but we have to be organized and we have to be ready for these fights and these battles.
That's a great point, Representative, about the opportunity to actually work with the. That's a great point that the representative made about the opportunity to work with utilities and change the business model or change the game. I mean, if you try and be as objective as possible, they're acting quite rationally. I'd love to own a business where I'm guaranteed a rate of return of 10% every year. There isn't a business in the private sector that's guaranteed a rate of return. And unfortunately, the best way for them to earn that return is by putting steel in the ground. It's not by putting solar panels on the roof. So I think, again, looking at this regulatory framework, I think there's a really great opportunity to actually partner with the utilities so they can make money off renewable energy. But again, we have to kind of look at the regulatory framework in order to incent that.
So we're opening it up. Here's our microphone. So maybe we'll start right. Introduce yourself. Sure.
I'm Karen Kendrick-Hands, and I'm with Citizens Climate Lobby. I'm also a Rotarian, and we have our own little climate change initiative in our Rotary Club. I am proud to be in Representative Taylor's district. I'm a constituent, and I am particularly pleased at your willingness to engage with ALEC and be at their table, even though their diet does not agree with you. And I was wondering how many of those of you here in the solar or renewable business are members of the Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce Association? Anybody here? A member in the industry? One. Perhaps more of you need to join that organization and change the conversation at their table, even though their diet may be unpalatable to you. And I'd like you to comment on that strategy as part of getting as organized as the ALEC people are.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here for the 76th Assembly District. It is absolutely imperative that we be aware of what's happening on the other side so we can plan. I mean, ALEC has been in existence for 42 years, started in the early 70s, and in a large part in response to the EPA and new clean air laws that were being proposed. And it was a response to that to try to maintain corporate hegemony. And it's been a long time coming now. It's been 42 years in the making. But it's really imperative that we be at the table, we know what the other side is doing, but you also have to try to engage the other side. I mean, I'm a progressive Democrat. There's 36 of us out of 99 in the state assembly. And I have really progressive bills. And I'm going to do them even though I know they're not going to pass, because one day they will pass. But I also have to figure out how I'm going to work with the people on the other side. And it is a balancing act. Sometimes they don't like what I say about their policies. But you have to try. You have to try to figure it out. And I haven't given up on the utilities, although we all get frustrated with this, digging their feet in, because I do think there's opportunities for a more sustainable business model that will create those jobs in the future. We'll keep them in business if they're smart, rather than going back to the coal economy, which is not going to last. It's not beneficial for us in our state. We do export $12 billion out of our economy each year to purchase coal, whereas tourism is creating 300,000 jobs. Tourism based on our environment. It's creating 300,000 jobs in the state of Wisconsin. So we can't afford to tinker with our environment. It's actually economically disastrous for us since we do depend on tourism. But we have to be at the table. We have to know what our opposition is doing. And I've written, if any of you are interested, this is also on, I guess this was in the Cap Times in September of last year, my article about going to ALEC and listening to this debate on energy. So I have an article I printed out, but you also can just get it online by Googling. It's on the Cap Times. But let's get in the game. Let's get in there. And it's sometimes uncomfortable. And I actually have to say, I think WMC, Wisconsin Manufacturing and Commerce, we need more people in there, honestly. The policies this group is pursuing are so adverse to our economy. I mean, it's sometimes staggering to me what they're willing to oppose and support, because a lot of these policies don't help our economy, don't help the people of the state. So it's really, really imperative. It can be uncomfortable, but it's very good to do. And it's good to try to negotiate where you can and be advocates where you need to as well.
Gary Peterson from Rice Lake. I've seen this game played before because I was a solar contractor back in the late 1970s until Ronald Reagan came in and killed me for the first time. So this is no replay. I was struck by your point that we need to get off the defensive in the rate case hearings. And I think we might be able to do that by finding solar's real strong suit, introduce that into proceedings, and put the utilities on the defensive. I think the strong suit is that solar PV really comes into its own in summer, when there are a lot of peak demand alerts, and when other businesses, excuse me, who have meters that will register peak demand pay a lot more for their energy per kilowatt hour. That's when solar really shines. If we urge that utilities put on all meters facilities to handle peak demands so that they can charge even residential customers those higher peak rates, that would be arguing in our case. We could then argue that those solar utility or solar systems generating electricity during those peak demands get those higher rates, that it's above net metering. I think that would be a good way to get the discussion on the offensive. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. You know, it's that kind of thinking that particularly when I was working on this power purchase agreement, it's like, well, what can you give to the utilities? What kinds of things can you negotiate over? But that's the way we need to be, we need to be thinking. The other strategy on this whole issue, and it's something that Renew has done such a great job doing, is forming alliances with business who want renewables. I mean, Gunderson Lutheran, are they here? Are they in the house? Okay, great. I mean, they've done a really, they're a huge employer in Southwest. I think they're the biggest employer, Southwest Wisconsin. They want to have a zero carbon footprint. They want to generate all their own energy. So you have these businesses that you could say would be much more conservative in some ways. Not that Gunderson Lutheran does, but some of them absolutely do. They want renewables. And so, there's an ability to bring those people in. To bring those people along with us, we must work with these business owners who are doing really great things. And I think how many businesses, 300 businesses or something you guys have now who want power purchase agreements, they want to generate their own clean energy. So there's great partnerships potentially here, and we really have to keep working and building those and consolidating those. Because there's a splinter in the Republican Party on this issue. Because there are business owners who understand this is good for business. This is their business, in fact. So those are also some partnerships that we need to make sure we are nurturing, we are growing, and we are working with.
Hi, I'm Bence. I'm the solar program coordinator with Environment America. It's the national arm of Wisconsin Environment. I wanted to first just thank you both for your leadership at the state and the local level for moving solar forward. I totally agree with you, Representative Taylor, that we need a big vision for moving solar energy forward. And then I think the city of Milwaukee is a great example of taking that leadership on at the local level, actually setting goals and working towards them, and then using that to be able to get involved at key moments in the policy debate. And so I was wondering, Matt, if you could speak to how effective you feel that was, and then what the opportunities might be to get more cities across the state involved to set their own goals and to get engaged in that discussion.
Sure. Well, I think it makes it much easier to be a vocal advocate for something when you are getting your own house in order. And so I think we really value that, and that's given us confidence to really talk about things that are happening at the regional or statewide level. I totally agree with the representative. We have to get in the game, and I think it was a huge learning process for us to be involved in this most recent rate case. And I think one of my biggest takeaways from the rate case was we were too late. We need to get involved earlier when they're actually setting the revenue recovery for the utilities. That's when they determine how much revenue they're entitled to recover. They're already entitled to recover a certain amount of revenue by the time we get to where they're setting the rates to recover that overall revenue. And so, again, the more you participate in the game, the more you know where those touch points are and pressure points are to really be able to advocate for your position. So what I would encourage other municipalities to do is get their house in order, learn how it works at the local level. There's a lot of technical issues here, and you can't be a good advocate on a very technical issue if you haven't had any firsthand experience doing it yourself. So just start doing it. Start doing what you can. It's real easy on energy efficiency. It gets a little more complicated as you move up, but there's any number of advocates, nonprofits, other municipalities in the state who are willing to help other municipalities go down this path. And so that's the first thing. I just encourage municipalities to be involved in keeping their own house in order in terms of energy. The other issue is, and this is a best practice for businesses, is reading your bill. Like look at your utility bill. It was huge for us. As I said, we had 1,500, maybe it's a little less now, but 1,500 different accounts for energy in the city. Waterworks, lights, the whole thing, facilities, bridges, bridge houses, you name it. And we had, in some cases, probably 100 different people paying those bills. And the person paying the bill was not the person running the bridge house or the person running the facility. And so as a municipality, look at your bills. The person paying the bill should be the person operating the facility, or at least they should be aware of each other. And once you kind of know where you're spending your money, how you're spending your money, where the energy hubs are in your facility or on your campus, that will help you get more involved in this game, so to speak. So just get your house in order, get involved, pay attention, know where you're spending your money each month.
Hello, Carl Whiting, Union Cap, 350 Madison, Wisconsin State Energy Alliance, anything that tries to head in that direction. Susan Bence, you wrote an article, or...
Louder, please. Louder.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Susan Bence, you wrote an article, or did a piece on Line 61 running through the heart of Wisconsin, soon to be the largest tar sands pipeline in North America. And our organization could get a hearing at the state level, but we found at the county level, county by county. Now we've got Walworth, Dane, Rock, Jefferson, Wood, counties that have passed resolutions calling for a full environmental impact statement and hearings in the affected counties. The reason I bring that up is I'd like to use a metaphor of a challenge with renewables in that when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, what do you do? And metaphorically, in our state, the wind is not blowing, the sun is not shining. on renewables. What are the key pieces that you would say are the energy holders, the batteries, the reserves by which really cool things at the local level, really powerful potential, even something that could create a tailwind or create the sun to shine on this issue, where you're seeing at the local level really powerful things that could be used as a model to encourage, as this other gentleman was talking about, further initiatives and to be there ready to go when this pendulum swings the other way, or to help this pendulum swing.
I don't think that I can really comment on what those should be on a report or who, reports what's going on and looking at trends, but I certainly think it's appropriate that Matt and Representative Taylor, that's probably the direction you would go. But I would like to talk to you afterwards.
I mean, just to follow up on that quickly, Mayor Barrett has a saying that residents don't care if Democrats or Republicans haul their trash or plow their streets. And I think that applies really to where we get our energy from. I think we want an energy mix that meets our needs. We want an energy mix that's affordable, and we want to have a choice in terms of where we get our energy. And right now, obviously, it's difficult at the state level. So again, it goes down. I think it's a great strategy to work with counties. I mean, again, you have to get down to where the rubber meets the road and start making changes there, and then hopefully, eventually, the policy framework higher up swings.
Yeah, and I think one thing that we have to do better is planning for that day at the state level where we can get things done. So, and that's now. You have to have a vision for what you want. And you have to be ready when you have the opportunity. And so we are doing some of that. We need to do much more of that. But I'm encouraged that we have kind of shifted to look at what we can do locally. Now, be aware, ALEC is coming locally. They have a new group called ACE, the American City County Exchange. And I think one of the reasons they have formed is on these environmental issues, is on the frac sand mining. They don't want localities to be able to make these decisions, especially because they have control of so many states. So what stopped some of these things? I mean, thankfully, the taking away local control for the frac sand mining did not pass both houses, but it's going to come back. And so we have to be aware as we got to go where we get stuff done right now, and it is at the local level, in my opinion. But be aware, there's also, they see that, our opponents see that, the big whole, big oil sees where the debate is going, and so they're organizing too at the local level. In fact, we had, over the mining issue, we had Americans for Prosperity, a Koch-funded group, come in to local elections. We've never seen that before. We had so much money come in up in northern Wisconsin, and actually down in Kenosha as well, on local races. Americans for Prosperity, what are they doing in local races, right? So as we shift, they're shifting too. So let's just be very, very aware, very intentional. A lot of this is building your local grassroots coalition. We have got to build those coalitions at the local level because we can use them at the local level, and then when we have an opportunity, we can use them at the state level. So we've got to be doing the organizing. Do not underestimate the power of organizing. We've got to get back to some of those basic, power of citizens, local tools that we have. We need to be using them right now, but be aware they're coming to the local level. So we got to get faster, smarter, better, more organized.
So unfortunately, the clock is ticking down. I'm sure that you'll have conversations beyond this point, and I really do want to talk to that gentleman. That wasn't a real comment. But Matt, is there any closing comment that you wish to make before we close?
No, I don't think so. You don't need to be optimistic or pessimistic. We just need to be pragmatic and do what we can do. And again, just wait until things start swinging out.
Yeah, and I would say, not to borrow a corporate slogan, but to borrow a corporate slogan, just do it. Just do it.